Thank you guys for watching my YouTube videos. If you like this video, please click on the like button and leave me a comment. Why not go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date with all of my videos, and you can click that bell icon. Right, Guido? Alright everybody, we're going to go right into today's video. Oh, hi Simba. Good morning. Good morning. I laugh every time I see people's videos on, oh, Savannah monitors, you can't tame them, and they're wild, and they can't be tamed down because they're wild caught. Even if they're captive hatched, they're wild caught. Look at this guy. So it is early in the morning. It's about 8:30 in the morning. These guys, all the reptile lights, well, I shouldn't say all. Anyone who needs a 12 to 14 hour light cycle, their lights come on between 6 and 7 in the morning. Simba, who's on a 12-hour light cycle, he's coming on, well actually, excuse me, he's on a 14-hour light cycle right now. He's coming on at 7. And so I thought I would take this time to go into lighting and heating, not just for him, but a lot of them. So a lot of the reptiles, guys, I tend to put them on 14-hour light cycles. Bearded dragons, anything that's got a brumate or would get shorter winter hours drastically in the winter, I do cut back their light cycle to 10 or 12 hours. But that can put some problems for you, and we're going to go over them as we go over how his cage is lit, how it's heated, and why I have it set up like that, and what I think personally is more natural. So there's going to be a lot of talking in this video, unfortunately, guys, and not a lot of Simba featuring because it's early in the morning for him, and he's like, what's going on here? But a couple things is, one, with heating and lighting, if you're working, a normal 9-to-5 job like I do, you are not going to feed your animals at 9 a.m. You're going to feed them. I feed my animals at about 5:30, 5:45 on their days of feeding, because that's when I would get home from work and I can feed them. So I want to make sure that there's enough adequate time for light and heat after that to still help them digest, right? Because they're cold-blooded, which is why I tend to like 14-hour light cycles, so I can interact with them in the morning. They'll wake up, and if I feed them at 5, 5:30, 5:45, and their light goes off at 9, they're still going to get 3 hours, 3.5 hours, sometimes 4 hours of heat to digest. Now, the other thing is, even if their light goes off, and even if their heat turns off, their stone blocks and everything are still going to be retaining heat, so they could still lay on those for an additional half hour to 45 minutes. So that has to do with the timing. But the other thing is with the lights and the heat. And this is, guys, if you have a big enough enclosure where you're able to do zone type heating and zone type lighting, and I'll go over what I mean. If your enclosure, if you're nice enough to be able to, let's drop this camera down, have multiple lights like Simba's enclosure, because it's 6 feet, 6.5 feet, the ability that I can do with that and the heat is really nice. So for lighting, he's got 3 LED strips around the front, the basking area. He has a UVB tube there, and then he's got a dome on top that has a 200-watt LED bulb that shines down. And that is the brightest light, but if you notice, the brightest light is the furthest from the basking, because I want that light to kind of come in and come down and over. And I'm going to go over how it works too. So then for his heating, he has a 200-watt radiant heat panel that will heat straight down and then irradiate out, and that's going to help take care of his ambient temp and his basking spot. So this will get the basking spot, right below the basking spot, to about 100 degrees, just the panel will. And then it will radiate the heat out, and it will make a nice temperature gradient. Guys, radiant heat panels are great for temperature gradients, especially in big cages, because that will hit that at 100 here, 90, high to mid 90s, mid 90s, low 80s over there, his cool spot where his water is. So we get a nice warm to hot spot. And then in his hide underneath here, his tunnel system he dug out, that's anywhere from mid-90s to even high 70s. It just depends on how deep he happens to have dug, because this is about 1.5 feet of substrate in here. So that's going to take care of that gradient, but it's not going to take care of the basking spot. The basking spot needs to be hotter. So I have a mini 5.5 inch dome here with a ceramic heat emitter in it that's going to shoot down and bring that basking spot up to about peak temperature, about 120 it gets to, which I find is really good for him. Some people will say go 130, you can go hotter, you can go hotter. He doesn't bask. When it gets hotter like that, it's too hot for him, he doesn't bask. So the peak spot, which is kind of middle back, yeah, it gets about 120, 125, but up here where since I have the dome aimed back there on purpose, up here, and then this being a little bit lower, this gets to, 118, 120, and I see him hanging out here more, although he will go back there as well. Now, I want to get with the timing system because this is, I think, the most important spot, the most important part, guys, and we can go with Simba. The LED lights that are around the perimeter of the radiant heat panel, as well as that UV tube, as well as the heat panel itself, those come on at 7 a.m. Bing! Those turn on. And there's a reason why I like to do it like this. And then at about 9 o'clock, the ceramic heat emitter that was up there, that spot, turns on, and so does that bigger LED light in the corner. The two things that turn on later also shut off sooner. Those shut off at about 7 to 7:30, and everything else stays on for the full 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Why do I do this? Because I like to simulate as close as I can what I feel would be happening in nature. What I don't feel is very realistic and which doesn't happen in the wild. And some people do this, guys, not only me. Some people have nice dimmers set up and you can do everything you want to do. But a lot of times I don't see this done with the heat as well, because maybe they only have one heat source. But in the wild, as soon as sunrise happens at 7 a.m., boom, it's not full brightness, right? Like the sun starts to rise and it's a low dim. So I don't want 7 a.m. to hit and have all of his lights in his tank turn on and it will be super bright. No, we have the little bit of the dimmer lighting that's just more spotlighting comes on. It's not super bright. And the heat panel turns on and it starts to get everything, heated up. I do have some ceramic heat emitters. You may have seen them there. They're on that thermostat back there. These are smaller bulbs. And that's just to make sure, especially in the wintertime when the house is colder, that overnight, and they could turn on during the day as well because they're just on a thermostat. They're not on a timer, although there will be so much heat in here during the day, it doesn't matter. But at night, it doesn't get lower than 75 in here. That's what they're for. But so a lot of times, like in the summer, they never turn on because there's so much radiant heat. The stones suck up a lot of heat and they slowly dissipate over the night. And I put my AC at 78 degrees, so he's up above the ground, you don't have to worry about that. But so in the morning, not to get off track, the light slowly comes up, right? And then you have a peak time, during the day that it's the brightest. And then as it starts to fall into nighttime, I know you're just waking up. I know. Good morning. As it starts to fall into nighttime, the sun starts to go down a little bit, right? It doesn't just go from full brightness to dark. And I feel like a lot of reptiles, and just because of the way we keep them inside, that's exactly what happens. It goes from dark to boom, it's bright, and then from bright to boom, it's dark. Now there could be some exceptions. In the summer when we have long days, I have giant, 6-foot window here in the front room, which is where Simba's at and most of my reptiles are at, where the light comes up at 6, so some light comes in through the window, and then, it gets dark around 10, so this is after their light's off. But in the winter time, outside it gets dark early, around 5:30 p.m., and it gets bright, later. So I want to simulate that natural light is on as much as possible. So these dimmer lights turn on first, and the main heat panel turns on and just slowly starts heating up his enclosure. That will be like that for about 2 hours. So again, the basking spot will only get to 100, maybe 105, and it won't be super bright. Then when 9 comes, the LED dome turns on, fills this area with more brightness, just shing, and the ceramic heat dome also turns on, that spot heater. So although we're at full brightness at that time, we're still not at full heat, which is key to me, because the ceramic heat emitter will heat up, and yeah, this thing will get super hot within a minute or two, but then it's still going to push that heat down onto the stone. So over the course of about 45 minutes to an hour, it's going to raise this stone's temperature to that 120, 125 sweet spot, which is really nice. So he doesn't go from nighttime temps near instantly to peak day temps, and he doesn't go from nighttime light to near instant peak daytime brightness. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. I'm just trying to make it as realistic as possible for him. Since he doesn't need high humidity, I don't feel the need to put a Mist King in here to spray once a week for a minute or two, even though I have, because Guido's cage is right next to Simba's, where there is a Mist King already, and so I have got that big 20-gallon tote full of water. I could easily just run a second line into here from that same pump, but I'm not going to. I like it exactly how he is. He is really good. The one thing that I want to add, and I don't see people adding this, is a fan. I want to get some type of small fan. I've said it before, maybe on a timer, so it's only once a day, a digital timer, so it doesn't have to be for a half hour or a 15-minute time window, where I can simulate some wind for a big lizard like this, for my tegu, for Sweet Tooth, or for him, or even for my Chinese water dragon or my frilled dragon, because we just have a lot of stagnant, and I just want to make the environment feel and act as real as possible. So that's, sorry if I ranted too much for you guys, and I know a lot of people are doing this. Now, if you have a Mercury vapor bulb or something that you're using for heat, those bulbs are actually kind of nice, because if you turn them on, you notice they're not full brightness right away, although they get to full brightness like within the matter of a minute. But it simulates, a Mercury vapor bulb will have a soft white, that more yellowish light come on, and by the time it fully brightens, then it's like the bright white. But that's what I do for Simba. It's working out great, just great. And some people have asked me, hey, how do you heat? How do you light the enclosure? It's evolved since, it's always evolving, right? If you guys are a reptile owner, you're always testing new products, you're always trying new things. You just want to give, bearded dragons, some even small leopard geckos, but things that are going to be with you for 20 years, which is what I'm hoping to get out of Simba. We're in the middle of June. He turned 1, so we're at 1.5 years old, just under 1.5. I want to be with him for the long game, and I want him to have just as good of a life as possible during that time. Thank you guys for watching, and take care.